podcast, as stated in the title, Health is Wealth. Don't you agree, Hannah?
That's right. Good health is truly something any person should aspire to achieve. Therefore, it is really important for the country, especially in Mindanao, to have better access in healthcare. One that every single Filipino can access and afford, so that everybody can have the chance to achieve good health as their wealth.
It is important for everyone to apply their learning or knowledge to fix these kinds of issues. Thus, we will discuss Christian morality values and philosophy teachings and how we can apply these two subjects to achieving a better healthcare system. But before all of that, what is healthcare? Hannah, what do you think healthcare means?
Well, healthcare is the maintenance or improvement of an individual's physical, mental, or emotional well-being through the provision of medical services and support, and is typically provided by trained medical professionals. Additionally, healthcare also involves the development of medical research, public health initiatives, and policies that aim to improve the overall health of populations. The lack of accessible healthcare is experienced by everyone worldwide. A significant global example of the lack of accessible healthcare was the limited access to essential vaccines and healthcare services in low-income and developing countries, particularly in Africa during the pandemic. How about in the Philippines, Angelina? Is there an experience here?
In the Philippines, the lack of accessible healthcare can be seen in the country's life expectancy rate, which is 68.2, significantly below average. Most local communities in the Philippines continue to rely on traditional herbal remedies because there are no hospitals or healthcare facilities there. Hannah, as a resident of Mindanao, have you experienced firsthand the lack of healthcare facilities in the region?
Well, before we lived in an area where there are no hospitals nearby. That is why my mom was forced to use herbal medicines as a remedy for first aid for my current illnesses. That is why it can be comparable to the country's experience when there was COVID-19 during the pandemic. It is really evident that we lack the funding to buy the vaccines from countries that provides them, and which is really showing that healthcare is really a necessity in the Philippines, because if we bought the vaccines from when it was released, we would have saved countless lives, countless Filipinos' lives that is now gone. As an Athenian, we are taught to help implement the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in our society. To further explain, Sustainable Development Goals, or known as SDG, were born at the United Nations Conference in Rio de Janeiro 2012. The objective was to produce a set of universal goals that meet the urgent environmental, political, and economic challenges facing our world.
Today, we are going to discuss the good health and well-being of Filipinos. According to the UN, or United Nations, Goal 3 is all about ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all ages. Now, what is the relation of UNSDG to the good health and well-being of Filipinos? The UNSDG disseminates statistical information to the Filipinos. It is important so that we would be able to be knowledgeable about the strengths and weaknesses of our healthcare systems.
Moving on from our previous topic, which we have discussed what is United Nations Sustainable Development Goal is, we are now going to relate it to the subject Christian morality. In Christian morality, we found a topic that is really relatable for the goals or the objective of the UNSDG, which is all about attaining good health. In the Christian morality, the topic embodied subject discussed about that the body is not merely an accessory, but it is something it is something integral that could help us become a person, or be a good person or a better person. That is why it is telling us to take care of ourselves or our bodies, that because it will help us in our lives soon. Now, in UNSDG, we are taught about taking care of our body as well. That is why we chose the embodied subject as the topic that is related to Christian morality.
To learn further more about this, Let us please welcome our esteemed guest, Mr. Franco Reyes. Now, Mr. Reyes, what are your insights about how does this topic relate to Christian morality, particularly the topic you meant as an embodied subject?
The similarity of USDG and the human body as embodied spirit is both emphasize the importance of well-being and taking care of ourselves. Both also focuses on the balance of the mental and physical aspects.
We have discussed UNSDG and its relation to Christian morality. We will now discuss its relation to philosophy. But let's recap Goal 3, Good Health and Well-being. Always remember that Goal 3 is about ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all ages. Now we will try to relate that to philosophy. In Oxford's definition, philosophy is the study of fundamental nature of knowledge, reality, and existence, especially when considered as an academic discipline. In short, philosophy is all about asking questions and continuously searching for the truth. For this episode, we will only discuss two topics: human freedom and infinite responsibilities. Human freedom or freedom is having the ability to act or change without constraint. Determinism, which means that all events are caused by your past actions. Meanwhile, infinite responsibilities mean that it is through others that we can truly improve ourselves. Personally, I believe that healthcare facilities bear an infinite responsibility towards the netizens of our country, especially to the minority, to aid the sick. Every single one of us must also be responsible to help the needy, ourselves included, to the best of our abilities. In addition, we also have the freedom to ensure that we prevent from falling ill and keep our bodies healthy through the good management of our lifestyle in order to improve the well-being of everyone. As determinism states that our future is a reflection of our past action, and so that we can provide more healthcare services to those who truly need it, and better ourselves in the process. Now we will dive deeper into the relation of UNSDG and philosophy with the help of our honorable guest, Mr. Gian Ang. Greetings, Mr. Ang. In your opinion, how can we relate philosophy, specifically human freedom and infinite responsibilities, to UNSDG?
We can relate philosophy to the UN SDGs by knowing the physical limits and how to improve them and the responsibilities that the UN SDG has for us. According to John Kavanaugh, man is aware of biological and physical limitations. Man can still be aware of his biological and physical limitations, channeling and improving them. We can also relate this UN SDG and infinite responsibility because we, as individuals, have a responsibility to our health and body, and we should take care of it.
Oh, I see. Now, a follow-up question, Mr. Ang. How can we relate the topics of philosophy to the lack of accessible healthcare systems in our country, specifically here in Mindanao?
We can relate the topics in philosophy to the lack of access to healthcare, by giving enough accessible healthcare to places all around the Philippines, specifically to provinces, to improve the health of the people, because the country has the responsibility to address this problem, without enough accessible healthcare everywhere, as some places in the Philippines, specifically in Mindanao, have little or no accessible healthcare for the people.
Now, thank you for that, Mr. Ang.
Now that was a very informative podcast part. Now we are moving on to this new part, which is under Christian morality in the topic sin and guilt. So we have here our esteemed guest, Mr. Franco Reyes, to be questioned in this interview podcast. Now, before we start this interview or this podcast, we will first recall the topic embodied subject and how is it still connected to our topic right now. So in the embodied subject part, we were saying that in the body of a person is not merely an accessory, but it is something integral that can be a part of our becoming as a person. Now, in the sin and grace, it is also telling us that we must be careful in what we think or decide to, or which decision will we choose. Will we let ourselves be enslaved to temptation or do the temptation, or we will choose something that will help us achieve good health. So we will ask Mr. Franco a random question before we start the actual podcast. Now, Mr. Franco, have you experienced temptation that leads you to sin that caused your health severely?
Yes, an example of this was eating unhealthy food instead of ours to stay healthy. This caused me to gain weight and have an unhealthy body during the pandemic.
Now, thank you, Mr. Franco. So what he just said is a temptation that led him to sin. So, now let us first discuss what is sin and grace. So in the topic sin and grace, we were taught that sin is a connection to temptation. There's a connection between them. So if you do that temptation, or if you let temptation into yourself, then you will commit a sin. And there are two types of sin, which is mortal and venial sin. So to further explain it, mortal sins are grave offenses that sever our friendship with God and consequently cause a loss of sanctifying grace. Anyone dying in a state of mortal sin would suffer eternal separation from God in hell. However, venial sins are lesser offenses that injure but do not destroy one's relationship with God. So, from the answer of Mr. Franco, he committed a venial sin. So, in our topic that is connected to attaining good health, Mr. Franco, a new question. Do you think that the sin you committed made your health deteriorate so bad?
Yes, it made my health deteriorate because, like I said earlier, that it caused me to gain weight and have an unhealthy body. Also, I had an unhealthy cycle of eating unhealthy food.
Wow. So, as from his answer, we can derive that the temptation he committed is a temptation that led him to have his health deteriorate. In some cases, there are cases like that people got tempted to eat junk foods. Me personally, I am an eater of chips. However, due to frequently having UTI, I stopped doing it or eating it. So from his answer, the temptation caused him his health. And with that, he has sinned, a venial sin. However, it does not cut off his relationship with God. Now, if we're going to discuss sin and grace, or temptation and sin, is really connected in how we can attain good health. Because if we let the temptations around us, if we do the temptation that we want, that is bad, we could have our health deteriorated. For example, we are tempted to drink alcohol, or we are tempted to smoke cigarettes. In those cases, those are temptations that are venial. However, those can deteriorate our health, especially with smoking and alcohol. It will target our kidneys and our lungs. So to change that, we must choose a temptation, or we must avoid that temptation. It may not be a sin at first because it was still a temptation, but if you do it, it will turn into sin. Now, to summarize it all up, I believe that attaining good health in this topic, temptation and sin, or sin and grace, is really evident because if we do temptation, we will attain sin. And if we attain sin and if we do the temptation, we will have our health deteriorated, and which we do not advocate. An additional information is that if we do not commit any temptation or sin that is bad for our health, we will have less chances to be sick. And if we are not sick, we will have less chances to need health care, which will be more efficient to this country, because if majority of us will go to the hospital every day due to letting ourselves be tempted or do those sins, we will have more people lining up to attain health care, which is something we must avoid on, so that we can fix the health care that is limited here in the Philippines. So if we have less chances or less people going to the hospital to attain health care, the probability is that the healthcare in the Philippines will be more provided to those patients who really needs it. For example, those patients under cancer or severe diseases and illnesses and can need more healthcare or assistance than other sins or other illnesses that is committed by letting ourselves do sins and temptations.
In this segment, we will expand on philosophy and its topics, the human freedom and infinite responsibility, and how they can help us create a better healthcare system. Now, Hannah, how do these topics affect our health and the healthcare of our nation, or just us in general?
Well, we all know that philosophy is the search for meaning until we can find the truth. Therefore, I believe that these topics will serve as a guide for us to know the truth. And every truth that we will learn will turn us into better and more mindful individuals who will be mindful of their health.
I agree with you on that, Hannah. And for sure, our guest can expound more on this topic by sharing his experiences. So let's all please welcome back Mr. Ang. Now let's go straight to the questions we have prepared for you, Mr. Ang. Do you have any experiences that you can share with our listeners about how the topic of human freedom changed your view of life?
In all honesty, human freedom actually made me realize that I should be more mindful about my actions. It was one that helped me change my way, especially in regards to my health. It made me think I wanted to be healthy, so I must start taking care of it now. And I did. As a resident of Mindanao, I saw that many rural areas do not have access to healthcare at all. Thus, as a student, I was determined to change the system in my region and in my country. So I started advocating for a more accessible healthcare system because it is my responsibility as a youth to uplift and help others to have more opportunities than I have.
Which topics specifically made you realize this, Mr. Ang?
I believe it was the idea of determinism. Present events are caused by past actions. It urged me to take care better of my health now as much as possible by building discipline and changing my lifestyle so that I won't regret it in the future. Moreover, infinite responsibility helped me realize that it is through helping others that I can be a better person or individual, and that it is my responsibility as a human to be healthy with them.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Ang. We will ask more questions in a while. Therefore, let's welcome our three new guests, Miss Marga, Bea, and Miss Joyce.
Now, Ms. Marga, why is it important for each one of us to take responsibility and action if we want to solve the problem of a lack accessible healthcare in Mindanao?
It is important for us to take responsibility and actions because this has been a problem in our community for a very long time, and small changes can still lead into improvements.
A follow-up question for Miss Marga. How important is it for us to change our ways and habits for a better livelihood?
Thank you for that wonderful question. It is very important for us to change our ways and habits for a better livelihood, especially in ways such as improving our mental and physical health.
I know that this question might be too late to ask, but to the both of you, why did you start advocating for an accessible healthcare system here in Mindanao? What is your personal experience and opinion regarding this issue?
For me, I started advocating for an accessible healthcare system here in Mindanao because it is significant for their health, especially that diseases nowadays easily get from person to person. It is an issue that should be taken seriously and as fast as possible for the betterment of the community.
Now lastly, do you have any advice on what we should do to help solve the problem?
My advice is to always take care of your health, exercise and eat healthy and do productive activities. We should build healthcare facilities all around Mindanao, especially in places with no accessible healthcare.
My advice is to spread awareness regarding this leading problem in Mindanao, especially our advocacy and movement through social media platforms.
In conclusion, we can truly say that the topics used here under the subjects Christian morality and philosophy is really beneficial in fixing the issues about the lack of accessible healthcare here in the Philippines, especially in Mindanao. Those topics also gave us an insight about how we can attain good health and to fix our well-being.
This is Han and Ange, Voice for Truth, Youth for the Voice Within. signing off our podcast about good health and well-being.
Bye!